What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and it is a great time to be a Chelsea fan. Let's go. It's a wonderful feeling. Isn't it just so nice that we go up 2 goals, we get scored on, and we go and put 2 more in? I mean, could you imagine if we went to, like, let's say Porto, and we scored 2 goals there, and then they scored on us, and instead of us scoring two, we let them score 2 more, and to be rescued by a late equalizer? Wouldn't that just be awful? Wouldn't that be the worst thing? Oh, yeah. It's great time to be a Chelsea fan, not only because we're doing well, but my God, it's great to laugh at Man U. But sticking with Porto for a second, because first thing I want to talk about, because I have given a lot of shit to the transfer board, the scouting people, because I've had a lot of questions over the past 2 years. I think a lot of us have. You look at some of the players that we brought in, some of them are just not good enough, and it's been not the best performances, and kind of feels like the transfer board doesn't really know what it's doing. And to be honest, I don't think I'm ever really truly going to get over selling Gallagher, loaning out Chalaba, and bringing in Dewsbury-Hall and keeping the likes of Fafana and Badiashile. That just, to me, it doesn't make any sense. And that's also kind of why I actually have lost interest. I used to try to watch the U18s and the U21s play whenever I could, because it was exciting to see what young talents are going to be coming up through our club. And nowadays, it just kind of feels like, all right, well, let's watch and see. How much do you think that guy's going to get sold for? And how much do you think that guy's going to get sold for? And that's just not exciting for me. So I can't really defend that as far as our transfers are concerned. But our scouting team seem to be doing their job, because not only are some of the players that they've brought in showing the quality that they have and showing why the scouting team picked them up and decided to bring them in, but also, as has been pointed out recently, two of the top scouting prospects we had this summer are doing very well. I mean, John Duran has obviously started very well for Villa, coming off the bench and almost scoring every time. Just scored the winner for them against Bayern Munich. And then Samu for Porto has been, I'm pretty sure he's been playing well. I actually haven't looked into his stats too much, but he just scored a brace against Man U. So those are two players that were being scouted heavily, and we put in offers for them, and people were like, why are you offering this much? And that's why. Like, our scouting team is actually doing some good stuff right now, and I have to give them credit for that. If I'm going to shit on them whenever they don't do their jobs well and whenever I feel like they're not doing a good job, I'm going to give them credit whenever I feel like, yeah, they're doing well. They're doing something right. They have people in there that actually know what we should be looking for. So, bravo. With that being said, though, let's talk about the game versus Ghent, because it's not a perfect game. There are definitely some issues that I will discuss, but overall, it was a fine feeling game. First half got a little iffy after the first 15 or 20 minutes, but that first 15 to 20 minutes was very comfortable. I mean, they didn't hardly have a chance. We were constantly just peppering them with chances. We playing so smoothly. I mean, there were a couple of moments that didn't turn into goals that if they had probably would be showing highlights. The one ball over the top from Tosin, and then the first time touch from Felix right to Nkuku. If the shot wasn't blocked there from Nkuku, I mean, that would have been one of the goals of the tournament for sure. The great ball over the top, great touch from Felix. I mean, it was beautiful to watch. I mean, there was a moment Nkuku picks up the ball and a nice little slide into Felix, and then shot again gets blocked there. But they were just combining so well. And then, of course, as the half wears on, we see Ghent grow into it. They see it's only 1-0. They've held on, and so now they're growing as a team. And then we just kind of shut it down first thing in the second half, which is great to see, because I've had my issues, and I've talked about this in the past, where when we come out and we start slow in the second half, you kind of have to look at the manager and go, what did you do at halftime? Did you just take them in, give them some tea, and say, all right, guys, now we're just going to have a little bit of calm time. Just everybody calm down. Everybody's going to sleep, and then we come out, we're all still sleepy from halftime talk. We don't see that with Maresca. We see the team come out and they're flying. We're scoring so early in the first half and the second half. We start so well, and it's such a great feeling to have. Now, of course, we do see they get the goal back that makes it 2-1, and yes, there are concerns there. I'll talk a bit more about Badiashile when I get into individuals, but the defensive structure can at times be very shaky. And I do think that is the one thing holding us back right now. I totally agree with Jason Cundy. He's been asked a couple times now, are Chelsea title contenders? And he always says no, because our defense, our keeper are not good enough. And I totally agree. You can't win with just a solid attack, and we do have a solid attack. We could probably challenge for top 4 with this attack, but our defense is just not good enough right now. Not only are we not good enough passing out of the back, which is how Maresca wants to play, but also defensively, we have too many gaps. We have a couple of defenders. We have a keeper who's just not quite organizing. I will disagree though, because I did watch a video recently where Kundy was saying that we're 2, 3 years away from challenging. I think we're only 1 year. I think next year, if we get a solid keeper in there that can play Maresca style, and we get an experienced defender like Silva, not one that I think about, Rudiger, Koulibaly, Van Dijk, those athletic defenders. If we get an older defender that is just athletic, they're not going to be good once they get a bit older and their body starts to give out under them. If we get an experienced defender like Silva, though, one that reads the game and is very intelligent, if we get that type of defender, I think we're title contenders next year, because that's the only thing holding us back right now. But anyways, looking at that goal, though, it shows we don't have the experience, we don't have the organization back there that we need to be comfortable defensively. So we're definitely going to be giving up goals this season. But as we saw after that, we're going to have a lot of goals in us. Great goal from Nkunku, well taken. Keeper probably should do a bit better, but he strikes it so well, and it makes it difficult. And then Dewsbury-Hall gets his first goal and, had a solid game. So good for him. I'm not going to hold the Gallagher sale against him. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, well, Gallagher's better than him, so I don't like Dewsbury-Hall. Like, that's not where I am. I do think Gallagher's a better player than Dewsbury-Hall, but if he can come in, if he can do the job well, come off the bench or step up in these tournament matches and put in good performances, I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, he's not good enough. He's not as good as Gallagher, so I hate him. Like, that's a silly way to think. So props to him for scoring the goal. And then, of course, we have another little bit of a defensive lapse at the end to give them a goal, to give them a little bit of excitement as they leave. And that I will say I'm disappointed with. And I think Maresca will be disappointed as well, because it was very shoddy defending for that one. It was not just Badiashile, who should have done better for the first part, but also, lack of tracking from Veiga, from Cassidy. It felt very chaotic. But as far as Maresca is concerned, I mean, it's another good game for him. Completely changed lineup, which means all of our starters, all of our first team are going to be 100% fit for the Forest game. And it shows how well this system is working. I really do think he's got into this team and said, look, you're not playing in the Premier League, you're going to be playing in the cup competitions. And I think that's why so many of these guys, yes, they're going to be working hard. And we can see there are moments whenever players are maybe trying to do a little too much to try to get into that first team or try to keep their place in the first team. And I do think that can cause its issues. But I think overall, all of these players, they're happy to step into these types of games because they realize this is their chance to impress. They know they're going to play here because he's probably told them, you don't start on the weekend, you're starting midweek, because we have a lot of games coming up. So it makes sense. But there is that caveat of, well, what happens, for instance, we have Newcastle away in the next round of the Carabao Cup. That's a difficult match. So what if you go to that one and you lose that match? Well, now there's 4, 5, 6, I don't remember how many are left for the Carabao Cup, but 4 or 5 or 6 games that now your second team is not going to be able to play anymore. So there is that caveat that I do wonder what's going to happen if we do lose that match. Or, I mean, we saw the one year we got Man City on the first round of both the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. What if a situation like that happens? And now all of a sudden you don't have all of those matches to give to your second team. Now they could be upset. So I don't know what's going to happen if that does come along, but we'll see. But it is on those players, though, to step up and say, this is my chance not only to impress, but if we don't win, those are less games that I'll be playing. But I do think there's a lot of risk and reward there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as the season continues. I think the only critique that I'll have of Maresca in this match is I do wish he had used a couple more subs a bit earlier. We see only 2 out of the possible 5. And granted, I'm not saying bring in, like, I think we had Colwill and Fernandez, had a couple of starters on the bench. I'm not saying bring them in because obviously you're resting them for the weekend. But I think we had a couple of other young players that maybe could have come off. I think if you bring on George and Guiu a little bit earlier, because I think they only had like less than 15 minutes to play, that was my only critique, just because we were comfortable at that point, and I would have liked to see them get a little bit more time. just because I think they are both solid young players that you give them some time to grow. I think we'll see them be effective in the next couple years. So this is the only real critique, and it's not a big one. It's just kind of a personal feeling that maybe you could have given them some more time. But with that said, let's get into individuals. First of all, Jorgensen, can't really say that he's at fault for either of the goals. First one is a free header at the back post that goes to the other side, so not much he can do there. And then the second one is basically a free shot that's well placed at the penalty spot almost. Yeah, not real much fault there. He made a couple of decent saves, played decently well with his feet. I don't know if we'll see him step into the first team soon. If Sanchez continues to make the mistakes we saw last weekend, probably. But for where he is now, I think he's a decent second option. I do still wonder what happened with Petrovic, why he all of a sudden is just gone. But from what I've seen from Jorgensen so far, seems like an okay option, but we haven't really seen him tested yet. In the back line, what's kind of a weird one, we had sort of a back three with Veiga sort of stepping into the midfield at times. But Disasi on the right, technically, did okay. He still has his moments where he's not the most comfortable on the ball. I think is the best way to put it. He's a little wild. Kind of reminds me of Rudiger, but I think Rudiger was a better defender than he is. It's just you're never really sure what to expect for him. Either he's gonna take the ball and do something great with it, or he's gonna give it away and set up a chance for the other team. Defensively, kind of all over the place. He's very strong, very energetic and brave, but also at times very naive. It's kind of a Kukurea feel about it. So, yeah, I'm not really sure where he is at the moment. It's kind of hard to tell whenever you're going up against a team like Gent because they're not, I mean, it's not Barrow, but they're also not one of the better teams we're going to face. I would say they're on the level of maybe a championship side. So, a little bit easier of a match. And so our defense was not as tested. So, Disasi at times could stand up to the test that they did give him, but sometimes it looked like he was a little out of place and a little confused about what he should be doing. Tosin in the middle of the back three, I thought he did fine. He looks strong. I think he's a better option than Fofana at the moment based on what I've seen from Fofana. So I would like to see him be in the first team picture more often than the second team, but I think he's a good, strong, solid choice back there. And I think because he's a little bit older than the rest of the defenders that we have as well, at least I think he is. So I do think having that experience shows. And I think that's what I mean whenever we need like a Silva type. We need somebody who has the experience. We need somebody who's been there and done it for a while because you can see whenever that experience is needed. And then Badiashile, of course, the one outlier for me in this match that just didn't have a good game. I mean, for the first one, he is the one that kept everybody on side outside of the one player who was off and didn't play the ball. But he's the one that, I mean, Tosin is back there all by himself, and that in and of itself is an issue. But he let all of them run past him. He's like, all right, well, we'll hold the line. We're right here in the top of the box. All five of them are back there offside. And then all of a sudden, Badiashile's like, hey, I got this guy, and then steps back and all of a sudden keeps him on. And then past that, for the second goal, he, for some reason, turns off and just lets the winger get the ball. And then his attempt to get back there and put a challenge in, very weak and very slow. And I get, it's late in the game, so maybe everybody's just a little tired. Mentality's a little tired as well. But it's still, you should still be putting in more of an effort than that. And overall, he just very weak and kind of lost out on some challenges, missed a couple of blocks and clearances. It didn't feel like a good game from him. And he's still, in my opinion, our weakest defender. And it shows consistently. And it's still disappointing because, again, when I watched him when we had Potter in charge, I thought he was going to be a good young defender coming up. He looked composed. He looked confident back there. And now all of a sudden he just doesn't have any of it. So very disappointing for that. And definitely our weakest player on the night. And then the final defender to talk about is our man of the match by far for me, Renato Veiga. And he's one that, I've thought he's done okay. I've had my issues with him, but I thought he's looked okay so far this season. This feels very much like another Malo Gusto situation where when he first started last year, I remember thinking, yeah, he's okay, showing some quality here or there, but I didn't really think much of him. And then all of a sudden, he had a couple of games where he looked phenomenal down that right side. Thinking, okay, maybe we got a player here. For Veiga, this feels very much like what I saw from Gusto last year. He's played okay, had a couple of decent matches here or there, but he's not looked anything special. And then all of a sudden, this match, he just turns it on. Great passes up to Mudryk, great passes into Felix. His defensive work is pretty solid overall. The one mistake I can think of is the moment at the end of the game where he and Cassidy should have been tracking the guy who scored into the box but didn't. That's the only real issue I had with him. Everything else, very solid. Very solid defensively, very comfortable on the ball, great passing, great vision. It was easily his best game so far, and easily for me, best player of the match. And on top of that, he threw a goal on there. And I think technically he gets the assist for, I think, Nkuku's goal because he's the last player to touch it. So, all in all, fantastic performance. And I hope this is a sign that this is the type of player that we can expect to see going forward. Into the midfield, you had kind of a midfield three with Cassidy sitting a bit deeper and then Dewsbury-Hall kind of going box to box and Felix dropping in sometimes when he's needed. Cassidy, I thought looked pretty solid. He's a player that has kind of been on the periphery. We're not really sure if we're going to see much of him or not. He's been okay. He's been okay so far. He's had a decent start to this season in the couple of matches he's played. I don't think we're going to see him in the first team picture anytime soon, but I think he's showing that he can at least do the job. He can be effective in these matches in the Conference League, in the League Cup. I think he's going to be an okay type of player. I do wonder, though, because we're seeing right now the starting 11, I think Maresca kind of has it. And as long as we don't see, like, for instance, Madueke has not played too well in the past few matches, he might be switched out for Neto soon. Outside of that, I don't see any of the rest of the 11 dropping out anytime soon. But we have Lavia returning from injury. And he's not starting right now, but he's also not playing for the second team. So I kind of wonder if Cassidy will be the one out of this second team to drop out so Lavia can get some minutes in. That's just kind of what I'm expecting to see. It's something more so for the overall picture and not anything against Cassidy, not anything against what he's doing. But let's be honest, Lavia is a better player right now. He looks much more comfortable. He looks much more dominating in that midfield. I think Cassidy at times can sort of lose track of runners. He's not the quickest. He is big and strong. He's got a decent touch, but he's not great at breaking up the play, and I think Lavia is. So I expect to see that change probably once Lavia is fully fit. Dewsbury-Hall, like I said, got the goal, looked pretty solid. And I'm not going to hold the Gallagher sale against him. I can't because it's not his fault that the transfer team decided to do that. Yes, I'm going to be comparing him to Gallagher sometimes in my brain, but let's be honest. Well, judging him based on what he did, I think he played well. I think he had a good performance. I think his passing was very solid. Pass to Mudryk for the first goal was great. His finish was well taken. Probably could have done a bit better with the chance he had in the first half to hit the side netting, but I thought he played well. He broke up play, dribbling was solid. I think that's about all I can say on it. Good performance, and I am glad that he is showing that he is capable because let's be honest, if he continued to underperform, I think more and more that happened, the more and more Chelsea fans would put pressure on him and say, why did we sell Gallagher? So I think getting a performance like that under his belt, I think that'll kind of ease the pressure on him a bit and he'll be able to play a bit more free. And hopefully we'll see more performances like that one. And then Felix, final midfielder. He is the one that I was talking about earlier when I say players are trying to do a bit too much to show what they can do. I think that happened with him last night because first half, first 15, 20 minutes, I thought he looked really good. Very dangerous, very creative on the ball. But I think as the half wore on and he stopped getting those chances, he stopped creating as much, and Cuckoo kind of started to get marked out of the play, so he didn't have him as an option. I think we started to see maybe the pressure, maybe the lack of first team time starting to show because he started trying to just do too much, started trying to make defenders, started trying to take on too many players, and kept losing the ball every time. And I think the more that happened, the more he tried to do. And it's a vicious cycle. You try to do too much with it, you're going to keep getting beat, which is going to drop your confidence, making you think you need to do more, and it's going to keep happening. So that's kind of where he was last night, unfortunately. I don't think we'll see that very often from him. I think he's a good enough player that he won't have many bad games like this. And I think Maresca will probably talk to him about that. Try to build up his confidence a bit. Hopefully he'll have a really solid game soon and we'll see that pressure ease and he won't put so much emphasis on trying to do it all himself. As far as the wings, Neto, I thought he played pretty well. Got himself a goal too. looks dangerous. I think he holds onto the ball a little too much at times. There's some moments where he's got the ball, pressure comes from the fullback, and he decides to go back with it. And I'm thinking, all right, so pass it back, we'll knock it around, we'll try the other side. And instead, it turns into he dribbles almost all the way back to the defense and then lays it off. He does that a few times per game. And I just feel like when he does that, it really slows down our momentum because we'll be just knocking it around, waiting for that opening. And then it goes to him and touch, 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 pass. When it could have easily just been touch, touch, pass. So I'm a little frustrated with that at times, but that's only whenever, because it was in the first half whenever we were only a goal up and we kind of lost the attacking impotence that we had in the first part of the match. So in those moments, I do get a little frustrated with it, but I think overall he's got quality and he's got a good desire to fight and really challenge the defenders and the fullbacks. So I'm glad we picked him up now because I was really worried knowing his injury record, and there still could be a chance that he could get himself injured soon, be out for the rest of the season. But I'm glad he started well, and I'm glad we're not really seeing any sort of hint that he's feeling a possible injury coming on. Long may that continue. Mudryk, obviously, I've had my issues with, and I can't really say that last night was a phenomenal performance from him. I can't really sit here and gas him up because I still had the same issues that I've always had. He looks really good until he gets into the final third. Yes, the cross for the goal was great. And it's not like he didn't have any good passes in the final third last night, but a majority of them were not good. They were not good, either passes or good decisions. I mean, there was one moment in particular that I'm thinking this is the typical Mudryk thing. He has plenty of space to run into. He's about top of the box. He's got the whole 18 to just take a touch, run in there, run to the line, and then cut it across. To anybody, put it in a dangerous area. Perfect chance to do that. He's got two defenders that are kind of in front of him, basically in between him and the goal. He does a little step over. His first touch, basically right to the second defender. It doesn't take him away from the defenders. It takes him right into the defenders because it's a bad touch because he just loses his mind when he gets into the final third. And sure enough, second defender steps in and thankfully pokes it out for a corner because that's the best that I can hope for him most of the time. And I hate to say it because I don't want to be a negative Nelly. I don't. But I get kind of frustrated when all these people are like, oh yeah, Mudryk was phenomenal. He was so great. And they're showing his highlights and it's him taking on players like 40 yards, 30 yards away from goal, taking on down the line. Veiga playing him in behind and he gets in there and he wins the ball and it looks great. It's like, yeah, but you got to show the whole clip. What did he do after that? He crossed it right to the keeper. Or he took a touch, bad touch. Now he has to cut it back and now the play is dead because he took too many touches and now he's just got to go backwards and we got to start over again. There's too many moments of that. And if this were his first season, for instance, if this were Neto, I'd be like, all right, let's give him a chance. If this were Sancho, give him a chance. Still early. This is his third season here, and he's still doing this. It's still the same stuff. So that's why I'm a little bit more critical of Mudryk. I want to see more from him. Now, if he can consistently get these assists, if he's assisting every match he plays, fine, great. Then continue to play him. But the fact of the matter is that he's done this before where he'll come in, he'll have a match or two where he'll put some stats on the board. Everybody's saying he's back. And the next thing you know, he plays 3 matches, doesn't do a thing. He's completely non-existent. And people are just like, oh, I guess that was a false flag. It happens. It's happened several times already. That's just my opinion. You disagree, that's fine. I don't care. This is just what I've seen from him before. And it's more of the same. More of the same type of play. It's more of the same that just gets very frustrating after a while. And then the final player to talk about for the starting is, of course, Nkunku. And not the best performance, but he gets himself a goal. And that's something that I think some of the best strikers will do. They're not exactly the most involved, but they can pop up with a goal. I think that's the difference between him and Jackson. Some of what I talked about in the last video, how Jackson, I think, has more to his game. He's very energetic, good presser, plays very well with the ball, but Nkunku's the better finisher. I think this is what you can kind of expect to see from Nkunku. He may not be involved for a lot of the match, but then all of a sudden he'll pop up and score. No problem. Yeah, I think it's not the best performance, but it's it's a good performance for a striker like him. Because if he doesn't score, then everybody, of course, is saying, he didn't play that well. But because he did, now all of a sudden people are saying, yeah, good game from Nkuku. And that's just kind of the life of a striker. And that's why, unfortunately for Jackson, so many people are critical of him because he doesn't score. And people think, oh, well, he didn't play well, completely ignoring the rest of his performance and what he did for the team. As far as the subs that came on, I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of time to see what they could do. But Guillou and George, both of them playing fine. Guillou, I think, could be a little bit more aggressive in the final third. It sometimes feels like he's got the energy and the pace to put pressure on, but there are times whenever he'll do it and then he just will kind of stop. And that's where I think Jackson, has shown he's willing to keep going. He'll go put pressure on one, ball goes away, he'll still step and he'll still be turned on for the next ball. Whereas Guillou, he'll put pressure on the first one, ball gets passed away, and then you can kind of see from his body language he's not really involved anymore. And then a pass happens that maybe if he were turned on, he could be there, put some pressure on. So I think that little bit of inexperience there, probably see that grow out of his game. And then George, we've seen a few cameos from him so far. I think this is probably one of his better ones because he did look pretty effective. I think against Barrow, looked young, looked energetic, but young, not the best performance. I think this one was a lot better. I think we got some fight in him, got some strength to him as well, even though he looks pretty small. And it took on some players, made some good passes. I think it was a pretty good showing from him. And if we can see more of that, I absolutely think we could probably see him starting very soon in the second team. Assuming, I would have to say either Mudryk just really falls off a cliff in his form or somebody gets injured. I wouldn't be surprised to see George possibly stepping in if we needed him. But with all that being said, we have Forest coming up this weekend. I expect it to be a difficult match. Forest playing pretty well on the road. I think this is the type of match that we'll see what I was expecting against Brighton, where teams are going to pack it in against us. They'll be difficult to break down. And I do wonder how we're going to play against a team like that, because a lot of our best performances recently have come from we managed to get them behind, and we have a lot of pace that can do that. So if we play against a team that's going to pack it in a bit more, be difficult to break down, how are we going to play? Are we going to try to get them to step out? And what if they don't? How are we going to keep the ball moving? And of course, because we have those defensive frailties right now, will Forest manage to capitalize on that and manage to keep us out? I think it's going to be a very interesting tactical battle, and I'm excited to see how Maresca is going to approach it. And that's honestly, it's a great feeling to have because I did not expect to be this excited going into games this season. I was expecting to just not be looking forward to anything and be going, oh boy, here we go again. Like another match week. And I think overall it's a good feeling. Also just for doing Chelsea videos. I feel like the past couple seasons it wasn't as fun for me to do Chelsea videos because it just felt like I was getting on here and just complain about this, complain about that, complain about the board. Because yeah, we were not in a good place. And it didn't feel like what the board was doing was working. It didn't feel like what Pochettino was working for a majority of the season. So it's nice to actually get on here and have something positive to look at and to talk about. Because I feel like it puts me in a better mood and it makes me, I guess, a bit more objective in my critiques as well. Because I feel like I can look at the critical parts. I can look at a player like Badiashile that I am frustrated with, but I'm not going to rip him apart. I'm not going to spend 5 minutes blasting his performance because there are other positives to get to. So I can just point out, yeah, he wasn't good and just move on to the better stuff, the more fun stuff to talk about. Great feeling. Once again, also a great feeling to talk about Man U at the moment because, God, Ten Hag's just doing a great job. I hope they keep him. I hope they keep him. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the game? What are your thoughts going into the weekend? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for more Chelsea reviews. Also, check out the channel. We have a lot of TV show reviews as well as a couple Let's Plays on there. So give those a watch if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.